Why 90% of vibe-coded apps fail within the first 6 months. Look, AI has made it ridiculously easy to build an app today. Tools like Lovable and Replit and Bolt, people can spin up an app in a weekend or even a day. And because of that, thousands of apps are being pushed to the App Store every single day. Just 2 years ago, there was 1 million apps on the App Store. Today, there are 3 million apps on the App Store. But here's the problem. 90% of these new apps going to the App Store never make it through to the state of profitability. Let's jump in. The first thing that causes these vibe-coded apps to fail is what I would call the cheat code mindset. People come in saying, what's the simple hack? What's the easy path to making this thing just blow up overnight? Well, the truth is there's really no cheat codes in business. All of it is hard-earned success. And because you have AI at your disposal, most founders who are coming into this space vibe coding don't actually know what they're getting themselves into. They haven't done the research to understand their industry and the competition, or maybe they don't understand the actual practical component of running a company. For example, did you do a budget before you launched your app? Most people don't even know to think about those metrics. So how could you really run the business effectively if you're walking to it blindly without even knowing these basic principles about how to run a tech company? And you also have to understand that the tech company is different than other products. It's different than other industries. A lot of people think they can just walk into it, create a really cool product that will go viral, and then boom, everybody's successful. That is absolutely not true. What usually happens is they'll post it onto the App Store, they'll get a few hundred downloads, maybe 1,000, and then it basically just goes quiet after that. And then they're wondering, what do I do now? Well, the truth is you never knew how to run an app company, and that's okay, but you need to learn. You need to go out there and capture that information. The fact that you're watching this video is a testament to you individually that makes you better than 99% of these other founders who are not actually doing research from people who have done it before. I've launched 350 apps. I think I know a thing or two about it. And even if I don't lay my opinion on this, if I just observe the trends of what happens among 350 different case studies, I can make observations about what will work and what won't for all types of apps, all types of industries. So when I'm getting into this, I'm laying out a budget. I'm figuring out what kind of products I want to make. I'm designing the core user journey. I'm doing an 80-20 analysis on which features I should or should not build. I'm studying my market aggressively. And most importantly, I'm watching YouTube videos, buying courses, buying coaching, getting up to speed on how it actually works. Because if you postpone that until after you launch, you just end up getting rug pulled. You spend a bunch of money on product. This happens all the time. People spend all this time developing the product, adding these features and investing in developers to tighten up the back end and things like that, only to find out they have to unwind that feature because it's not something that users wanted, or maybe it's not getting a good take rate, or maybe it's causing back-end complexity that's making the app crash. So people get into it and then have to learn these lessons on the backside. That's why I'm trying to tell you before you get into it so that you can understand what can I expect in terms of like product, what can I expect in terms of advertising budget I'm gonna need, what's normal metrics for an ad campaign, how much organic marketing should I be doing. So all these factors play into it. So it's just really important that you do your homework first. The things I would look at are how I'm gonna manage my product roadmap, how I'm gonna budget my marketing, when I'm gonna expect to get profitable, how I'm gonna do my pricing and packaging strategy, what are the competitors weak at? These are the kind of things that you should be thinking about. Now, a lot of stuff, you're not gonna be able to learn it until you actually get into market. So also understand that you can do a lot of research and it's never gonna be enough. So at some point, as soon as the product is live, in my opinion, that's when you should start marketing it. We're gonna go through a bunch more in this video. That's just the umbrella concept. So let's get into step number 2. The number 2 reason why new startups fail that are built on vibe coding is because they have no guardrails. What do I mean by guardrails? When you are running a normal type of company, let's just say you raise $100,000 of investment, you're gonna spend $50K on building the product, you're gonna spend $25K on marketing and $20K on administration and legal. You kind of know what your guardrails are. But when it comes to vibe-coded apps, there is no budget associated with it. There is no planning component to it. You don't have to go in front of investors and build a pitch deck. Really, you don't have to do anything. You can just build the app and get going. Sounds great, but it comes with major pitfalls. What ends up happening is people overdevelop the product. So they're adding new features over and over, or building a really complex long user journey, or they're just tweaking and tuning it all the time, which when it comes to vibe coding causes confusion on the back end and it breaks other features. Essentially, you have no mile markers. You don't know like where you're at in the process and whether you're going in the right direction or not. So walking into this blindly is really just self-sabotage. What ends up happening is you add all these new features to the app and it's like, okay, this is becoming a cooler and more useful app. I'm so excited about this. But in practice, practicality, what's happening is the users are getting confused. How could they possibly know how to navigate an app that's got like 20 different components to it? The more features that you add on to it before you launch, the lower your retention rate is going to be when you launch. A good app should just have one core feature upon launch. And if it's not strong enough to launch on that one feature, well, then you got to work on that one feature. You need it to be 80-20. You need the 20% of your features that deliver 80% of the value. Take that one and make that the core value app. That's your core functionality, and scrape the rest. Get rid of the rest for now. And when that is strong and compelling, then you have something worth launching. They also walk into this with no guardrails around their pricing methodology. Like, is charging $10 a month ever going to make this thing profitable? What do other apps charge? Is this attractive enough of an investment for the users? What's the churn rate in my industry? One of the super common questions I get is, what do you think about my pricing? And I'm like, I mean, it's fine, but like, it means nothing until we've tested it. When you're overdeveloping the product and you don't really have any reference point for your pricing and packaging strategy for your target audience and your messaging and things like that, you end up with this convoluted roadmap where you're working on a bunch of different stuff at once. You're building new features, you're trying to optimize the pricing, and what it ends up becoming is this big hodgepodge of AI slop. Do not let that become you. When I see those apps that have an AI-generated website, AI-generated ad copy, an AI-generated app, essentially what the AI has done is it has normalized everybody in your industry. So the good and the great, and then the terrible and the boring and the weak apps, and it's created the middle. So effectively, you've become average, or what I would consider below average, because everybody can see AI when they read it. So all you're doing is self-sabotaging when you don't have any guardrails and restrictions or boundaries in place. So you need to understand what your boundaries are as soon as you can. They have zero guardrails. The next reason why founders self-sabotage and end up destroying their vibe-coded apps is because they blame themselves when users don't like the product. And then they end up giving up too soon. Really, it's just people pulling the plug. It's you who makes the decision of whether this thing is going to continue. It doesn't even matter what the users say. They could love it, they could hate it, but it's ultimately you who's making the decision, hey, I should carry on with this or I shouldn't. So why are people so quick to pull the plug? Why are they so intimidated by running into what I would consider very normal challenges as a founder? So essentially, you have put $0 on the line, meaning your personal commitment to it and your heart being in it, it's not there. Now, if you put $150,000 of your hard-earned savings in there, hey, maybe you might treat the company with a little bit more respect, right? Because you're like, well, I put $150K in this, I'm not about to let it fall apart. So this low stakes mindset, they bring it into everything that they do. They bring it into their marketing. If you really want this company to succeed, you think it's going to succeed by you investing $10 a day on ads? Absolutely not. Why? Because me over here competing with you is willing to invest $1,000 a day in ads. Who do you think is going to win in the marketplace? It just becomes very simple when you put it like that. So what happens when you don't make any investment into the product financially and time-wise? It's just like an hour or two of development initially, or maybe like even 20, 30 hours of development, but it's still a super relatively low cost. When I first started building apps, they were 100 to 300K to build, and it still costs that to build good products with a good development team. So when you put $0 in, there's just no weight to your decision. There's no conviction in what you're doing. And then they end up pulling the plug whenever they face resistance. They're like, oh, this problem is bigger than the 20 hours that I've invested in this. This problem is bigger than the $1,000 I've invested in this. And then they basically just pull out and back off because they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to put good money after bad money. But the truth is the founders who are in Silicon Valley who are having massive success put hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars into their product right in the beginning of the company. So you're competing where you're investing 50, $100 in your product to build it with guys who put $100,000 in. What do you think the difference in conviction levels are going to be? When there's no investment of time and money up front, or a super relatively small one, like a 1 to 5% relatively, then the ships don't get burned. You don't go all in and say, fuck my job, fuck everything I've done. Now I'm just going all in on this and I'm going to focus on it till it succeeds. But you have to understand that is the X factor that makes startups succeed. It's when people go all in, when they're working 80-hour weeks, even if they're not being efficient. It's just the mindset around that level of dedication and commitment. When you dedicate 80 hours a week for 2 years to a company, it's like, dude, I have no other choice. The bridges are burned, the ships are burned. There is no turning back. I have to make this company succeed. And so that's hard for these vibe code founders because they don't have that actual conviction. So the question becomes, how do you create that conviction? How do you create that level of commitment to it? Well, the bottom line, and really the only way is to look within and to dig into yourself and say, how bad do I want this? How unhappy am I with my circumstance? Am I so unhappy with my circumstance that I'm willing to do anything that it takes to make this company succeed? So you have to look inside. If you're vibe coding an app and you want to make your startup succeed, you have to look inside and say, what is my motivation here? Am I truly unhappy with my circumstances so much that I will throw shit to the wind? I will do everything that it takes to succeed. That is the mindset of the $100 million founder. And unless you can adopt that, you're not going to become the $100 million founder. And just one last thought on this. I don't blame you or any other founder who is starting a company if you have run into these particular challenges or if you are working with this kind of mindset. I'm sharing this with you so that you can break that and that you can have awareness around it. But most founders have not been in the driver's seat of a successful app company, and so they don't even know what to look for. They're not anticipating problems in the way that I am or that you are. They're not looking for problems. I'm actually actively looking for problems. That is the fun of it. That is the sport. I treat this like football. It's about tackling challenges and overcoming them and winning the goal. So just to summarize, the three main reasons why startups that are vibe coding their apps are failing is, number one, people just want the cheat codes. They want the shortcut. And what they don't realize is the long way, the long-term outlook is what's going to actually give them success. Number two, you have no guardrails, no reference points. You don't know what's good and what's bad, where your product sits on that spectrum. And lastly, they blame themselves for users not loving their product, and then they end up pulling the plug or changing products. This is a marathon, not a sprint. It's about outlasting your own wits and outlasting the competition. That's what's going to make you succeed, not striking gold and getting lucky. Okay, the next reason that I see these vibe coded apps fail is because people are expecting everything to be easy, and so they get surprised or rattled when they encounter problems. Understand that business is the game of solving problems. So by nature of doing this work, you're going to run into issues, conversion rate issues with the app, retention issues, people not knowing how to use it, the funnel not working. These are all normal problems that if you haven't worked in this industry before, you're going to be surprised or maybe intimidated by them, but understand that they're not a big issue. These are all completely normal. You have to be expecting that problems are going to be a part of this work. What happens is these founders launch their app, they start getting some users on it, and then the users fall off after the registration process and they churn out or they never actually start using the app. So these founders are experiencing these unique problems that they haven't dealt with before, and they don't know if it's a normal problem. It seems like it's a crushing problem, right? Nobody's using the app. Seems like the app is a bad idea, should just stop using it. Then they are inclined to pivot or pull the plug. And that's what happens all too often. They encounter an issue that they haven't seen before. Nobody like myself has told them, hey, that's a normal issue, just work on it, I'll help you fix it. And then they end up pulling the plug and the whole company fails. Within that same breath, it's like you not only have to be expecting problems, but you have to not be focused on them and focused on the light at the end of the tunnel. Because when you're a founder, you're going to be in the tunnel. You're like in this darkness. It's darkness all around you, challenges, difficulty, not enough sleep, too much work, long hours, your wife's mad at you because you're not present. All these are real issues. So you got to stay focused on the light, which is the end goal, the outcome, the reason you're doing it all. Another reason why people will pull the plug due to these, what I would consider pretty minor issues, is they don't understand what the source of the problem is. They'll have a problem like, oh, my users are all churning after 1 month, and they don't understand how to fix that problem, so they think the problem is not fixable. But it's not fixable, it's just that they haven't dealt with it before. They don't know how to fix it. And what a smart founder would do is go to a coach, go to a course, go to YouTube, go to ChatGPT and ask, hey, how do you overcome this kind of issue? By the way, these are super solvable issues: retention issues, churn issues, user activation issues, revenue capture, free trial rates not converting. These are all normal issues. But because they don't understand the source of the problem, they can't identify it, they can't fix it. And lastly, they're not willing to bear through the challenge of actually dealing with it. They might know how to fix it, they might know the source of the problem, they might be focused on fixing it, but they realize, oh, this is just too difficult. I'm just not willing to put in the time or the effort to do it. But understand there's somebody way harder working, like myself, who's going to say, I don't care if I run into that problem, I'm going to keep working on this until I fix it. And that's who you're competing against. And that's why these vibe coders often fail. I started in the marketing agency world. That is the most competitive space. That is the place where the most people have had a bad experience. The reputations are horrible. It's hard to establish yourself in that space. But guess what? I was still able to make a success with it. The reason is I wasn't worried about the competition. I wasn't worried about these problems. I just said, I'm just going to dial in and I'm just going to keep focused and keep working on solving them as much as I can. And lastly, the other major challenge that I see destroying these new vibe coded app companies is that they never set up a growth engine. They'll figure out how to create an app using these chat prompts, and maybe they're in Replit or Lovable and they can design a pretty nice product, but that doesn't ever actually equip the company for growth. There's no traffic source where new users are going to be coming in. There's no way of measuring that traffic. There's no way of optimizing the user journey because there's no growth engine installed. And with no growth engine, there is no company. So you want to get your split testing done as soon as you can. What I recommend, 3 sets of 10 ad graphics. Each of them looks the same. The only thing that differs is the message on them. One set of ads that has 10 different messages, 10 different hooks. They're going to captivate people, 10 different problem statements, and 10 different solution statements. If you run those 3 rounds of split tests, I can guarantee you can get your app profitable in a few weeks to a few months. Once you find that profitable audience, after running those 3 split tests, you'll see which age, gender, location, and behavioral characteristics of the audience that's getting the most purchases, the most conversions, and then you can focus on that one, and that becomes how you scale. For example, we just launched an app that helps you develop your meal plans, and we thought it was going to be like 30 to 40-year-old people using it. Turned out it was 50 plus males who were trying to manage their cholesterol levels. So we of course adjusted the product around that, but by the time we found that audience, we already knew what was profitable and we could just start scaling from there. So do your split testing, get your growth engine built before you go and measure the success of your company. Remember this, building an app today is easier than ever, but turning that app into a profitable real company is actually quite difficult. But if you take the lessons that I shared with you today and apply them, you're going to be better off than 90% of founders out there. So if you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe so that you can motivate me to keep putting out my best secrets, my best content. Look, I'm not gatekeeping anything. These are the topics and concepts that I share with my internal team when we're launching apps, and this is the best stuff that I got. So keep me motivated to do that. Like, share, and subscribe. Share with another founder who you think might benefit from it, and let's both grow your startup together. I'll see you in the next video.